Blade Talk with Scab and Joe.
The American experiment requires us all to push the boundaries.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Blade Talk with Scab and Joe. Sit back, relax. We got a pretty good show here.
Please don't forget our U.S. veterans. Growing awareness for veteran suicide. Hashtag 22 a day, no more. Veterans, you always have a place here. There is a number in the description of all of my videos for some good folk that can help you if you are in despair. That's right, everybody. Welcome to Blade Talk. We are here and you are there, and thank you so much for being there with our lives, with all our Blade Talk lives. Actually, somebody in the comment section, I forgot who it was. I was reading it while we were kind of getting, pre-show and all that, having pre-show discussions. Somebody has said this Blade Talk is like OnlyFans for Blade addicts. I think that's pretty funny. But yes, thank you for being there as always. And if you're catching this not on the live and on the replays, thank you for being there as well. Just so you know, also this live is being shown on simulcast on two channels, on my channel, obviously JS Playcraft, and also on Scab's channel at Choir Boys Outdoors. So you'll be able to catch it on either of our channels afterwards and wherever else we're airing it. So again, thank you so much for being here. And guys, with Blade Talk, as we try to do traditionally when we started, is try to get you real knife people, people in the industry, and this is no exception. We have William Collins here from WC Knives, and we're giving you a little bit of old world knowledge, and I think it's gonna be a great conversation. You're gonna see some great knife product, great American-made, handmade, custom knife product that he offers. His knives are fantastic. Scab has had his hands on many of them before, and he had his hands on many of them before, but we'll talk about that as well. He shed blood for these knives, but let's get the gentleman into the room. And again, guys, thank you for being here, and we'll visit the comment section as much as we can tonight, but definitely leave your comments there and we'll get you guys going as well. So welcome, gentlemen, to the room. Welcome, William, and welcome, Scab.
How y'all doing? William, thank you for being with us. Guys, here's what we want to do. William is really one of my favorite knife makers, and I got to meet and camp with him about a month and a half ago. So we're glad he's here. I'm really glad he's here. We're going to take on a couple different topics. And guys, listen, here's the deal. And y'all know this because y'all watch the channels, both channels. We want our guests to talk. We want it to be his show. If you have questions, put them in. If we miss them, put them in again. Okay. We focus more on the guests than we do the chat. That's by design. But William, if you would, get you a sip of water and just give us a quick introduction to who you are and how long you've been doing knife making.
I'm William Collins, founder, designer, fabricator, craftsman, chief cook, bottle washer, sole proprietor of WC Knives. If anything happens in the shop, I do it. Everything is done in-house, including heat treat, cryo treatment, everything. I've been in the business for making knives professionally this is the 11th year. This month makes 11 years. Been involved in knives my whole life. I've been a collector. I've been a user. I've been everything you can imagine with a knife. I've done it, tried it, tested it, broke it. Whatever you can do with a knife, I've done it. So that's about the sum of what I am.
About the sum of the parts. Let me ask you this, because I was thinking about this today. There's a moment in everybody's life, right, where you go, this is what I need to do. This is where I need to be. Was that a eureka moment for you, or have you always known, hey, I need to be making knives or making something? Let me put it that way.
Well, the first knife I ever made was in metal shop when I was in high school. Then I got away from that. I went into the Air Force for almost 10 years. From there, I went into And throughout my young life in high school, on summers and weekends, I always did construction with friends involved in construction my whole life. And then once I got out of the Air Force, I started working in commercial construction, and I went from a superintendent all the way up to vice president of operations in a major construction company, commercial construction company. Got burnt out after about 14 years. I mean, I was toast. So the opportunity came, and I walked away from it. Didn't know what I was going to do. But I've always loved knives. From the time I could walk, I've had a knife as far back as I can remember. The story in the family is that I cried when I was just walking good to get my dad's Barlow, the Barlow knife. And finally, he relented, and Mom would only let me have it if he broke the blades out of it. So, of course, with the blades broke, I didn't want to have anything to do with it. So, but anyway, as far back as I remember, I always had knife. Played with screwdrivers, made them out of old aluminum tent stakes. However I could make me a knife, that's what I did as a kid. So anyway, after I had been burnt out on construction and I wanted to change, I wanted to do something else. I didn't know what it was, but I still collected knives. I had, at that time, over 600 in a collection. I had 2 safes full of knives. Every knife you can imagine, I had it. And there was a knife that I'm not going to name the brand, but there was a knife that I wanted, and I called him, and he said, you can order one, but it's a 3-year wait. And I said, well, I'm not waiting 3 years for a knife. Famous words. But anyway, I said, I'll just make it myself. And he chuckled and said, well, good luck. And I was like a bull to a china cabinet. And I took that as a challenge. So I had a stack of red oak firewood in the backyard with a fire pit, a hair dryer, and a bucket of used motor oil, and a 1x30 sander from Harbor Freight, and I went to work. Watched a few YouTube channels with how to heat treat and anneal. Started with some files. I think everybody starts with files at some point. And about a week after several attempts, I had a knife that would work pretty well. So friends started seeing that. They said, hey, man, you need to sell these. And I said, well, where are you selling at? And they said, eBay. I didn't know anything about eBay. And, I never even heard of it. So anyway, I got on eBay, and I would make a knife, put it on there, and it'd sell. So after a while, it got to the point where I was getting orders in, and until COVID, I mean, we were pushing out over 2,000 knives a year. I had 5 employees, and we were cranking out some knives, and we shipped them all over the world. Since COVID, everything kind of constricted, and everything went back to just me and the one-man shop. And that's pretty much where I'm at now, is just a one-man show.
Right.
But I'm still doing right at 1,000 a year, and ship them to a couple.
That's
strong.
That's a nice amount of knives there.
Yeah, I stay anywhere from 300 to 500 back ordered at all times.
Right.
And and that's I'm saying that humbly. I'm not saying that prideful.
Yeah.
It's a testament to your life's work, really. You're at least the last 11 years of you're doing something right, and so that's very humbling, and I appreciate each and every one of my customers. I really do.
You know what's funny? Well, from the story that you told, and we've had quite a few people now here coming in telling us their backstory of how they got into knives and all that, and everyone kind of so many people have the same premise that they tried it out, they got just they tried to make a knife, it kind of worked, and it's always their friends, it's always somebody else that tells them, you know what, you should sell these knives, because you yourself, you're looking at it like you just made a knife, you're just happy, you're taking pride in doing it, you love knives all your life, and you're making them. It's always other people that are telling you should make a business out of this, and not you. And I've seen that's been, and right, SCAB, so many people have said exactly the same thing that you said with the same type of story.
Well, and the thing is too, the other common thread is that they've all been somewhat intelligent. We don't have a bunch of dumb bastards on here. You know, and that's why I ask you,
We only have smart people on this place.
only smart people on here, and
Only.
they get a little intimidated from our intelligence. But the thing is this, William, and I really was thinking about it today, and we camped, and I cut my damn finger off and all that. But I thought, what was that moment for you? Yeah, William was sitting right there. That was a hallmark moment. But what I just thought about that today. I'm like, what, when did that switch? But like Joe said too, it always seems to kind of be the tail wagging the dog,
I really kind of fell into it, Scab. I didn't even know I had a talent for it until I went out there and did it. I knew what I wanted. The thing is, I had such a background in it because, like, I had 600 knives. I mean, I had just about everything you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I had used a lot of different models, a lot of different styles, grinds. I had a lot of knowledge, but it wasn't in these hands until I got into the shop and went to grinding. And and that's where it came from there. Just simple grinds up to the compound grinds that I do today.
And the compound grinds is something we'll talk about. But I wanted, for those of you in the chat and checking this out, I wanted to start this off really kind of back at the beginning for a reason, and just kind of work our way through it. The thing that I love, and I'm up to 3 of your knives, and what's crazy is all 3 were gifts, and I love all 3. Blackie gave me the Sainer Scout.
Is this the knife that did you over, Scab?
What's that?
Is this the knife that did you over?
Yeah. That's the Stranded Woodsman, I believe. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's the Stranded Woodsman.
Look at Scab's finger, everybody.
It was kind of discontinued because it really wasn't a popular design, so it kind of fell by the wayside. But
well, here's the thing with that knife. I made a video, a short, just a quick short when I got home, saying, "Hey, rookie mistake." That knife's got more hate because, of course, that's the short that took off. But here's what I tell everybody. Watch the long form video, because one thing right there, William, and guys, what we wanted to do is just get into basic knowledge, and I wanted y'all to get to know William, because a very intelligent man, but he's also grounded in skill. And that knife, that Stranded Woodsman, was a hell of a knife. Nobody walks around pulling a knife like this. That's why I say it was a dumbass thing on my part, because you put that knife on your belt and you come straight up, you're in no danger at all. Okay. JR said, ask William how the Signature Series knives are coming. He's looking forward to his.
First shipment would be out either Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
And now all of them will ship except for about 2 or 3, and those will ship probably Monday or Tuesday.
We'll ship JR's, because that one's probably coming here for review first.
I don't know when he ordered it, but I think there was 13 of them ordered, and about 10 of them are being shipped out. The first 10 that was ordered, like I say, either Friday or Saturday. I had doctor's appointments today. I had to take my mom to a doctor's appointment. That was a holiday thing. Tomorrow I got an appointment, so been hindrances here, but I've got them almost finished, and they'll ship either Friday or Saturday.
Well, tell me this, and let's just kind of walk through it. I guess what I want to start with, and I'll show you this. We've got some of your knives we can pull up. This one is the Master Woodsman, the Blackbird, right? But the thing with all of your knives, and the cool thing, guys, when we camped, William had some knives and he let me use those and check them out. But the thing is, if you look at that handle, your handles are some of the best on the planet. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. You have some of the most functional handles out there, but they're all similar. Do you have a certain, talk about your handles? That'd be the best way to go about it.
Well, it kind of goes into my philosophy on knife design. I think that a design goes from the pommel to the tip. A safe knife is a knife that you control, and the handle is 99% of how you control that knife. Now, I'm all over the knife as a user, but for the most part, I use the handle. And if it's not comfortable, then you're not going to want to use the knife. If it's too slick, then it's dangerous. It slip out of your hands. It's going to hurt you because you lose control of it. Anytime you lose control of a knife, you're going to get hurt. So I try to have a comfortable knife or a comfortable handle that is easily gripped. I like a larger handle because thin handles causes cramps because you're always squeezing it, trying to feel that handle. So it causes cramps, arm fatigue. I mean, it's a dangerous knife if you use it for any length of time. And there's a place for those neck knives, pocket knives, so on and so forth for slim handles. But when you have a belt knife that you're going to use for hours on end, you want a handle that's substantial, that's going to fill your hand up. It's not going to cause blisters. It's going to be shaped to where you can control the knife, know where that blade's at all times as you're feeling that knife, and have good control of it.
Is that you?
Yeah, you know, it was something played that just played in the background. It was actually William's intro to his YouTube page.
Good job, Joe. Well, that's what I was going to say too. William, when you do a belt knife, you're basing that off hours of use. I noticed when we camped, you brought that up when you and I were talking continually, long-term use, right? So that's something that you factor in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in bushcraft, I mean, you're going to use a knife for hours on end, whittling on a stick or doing bushcraft chores. I mean, it's not something you're going to use for 2 seconds and then put away.
Right.
Even kitchen chores. I mean, really, you want that knife to where you're going to be able to use it for an extended period of time.
So that's one factor. Thank you, Frank.
I think this question's for you, Scab.
I'll do a video on that coming up, Frank. Actually, William, and I think we talked about it. We have a knife making contest coming up, but I'll get into that on another video. I will say this, and then follow it up with a question to William. One thing that I enjoy is not having a knife design. I enjoy not wanting to design a knife. I look at this, William, where I'm at in kind of my journey as a learning experience. And I like, and I'll tell you why I'm saying this. A lot of times guys design a knife, right? And that's kind of the thing now. Jump on YouTube, review some knives, design a knife, and off you go. I'm at a point now, and it's kind of like what William said. William, when you were talking about your collection, you'd used knives your whole life. You were at a point where it was just part of the natural progression. And I'm not there.
The reason I have 600 knives is because I was always disappointed in all of them.
Right.
I mean, that's the honest truth.
Yeah.
And I was always after that unicorn, you know, that was out there that I couldn't find. And so that's the reason I called this guy up to order his knife, because I was still looking for that unicorn. And it wasn't until a few years ago when I started doing the compound grinds that I actually said, hey, you know, this is closer to that unicorn. Have I found the ultimate knife yet? No, and I hope I never do. Because if I do, then it's time to hang up the grinders. You know, it's time to go do something else if I find the perfect knife. But that's the pursuit, you know. The old slogan, relentless pursuit of perfection or whatever. Well, mine is the relentless pursuit of a perfect knife. And
well, let me ask you this on that. What's your closest one, you think?
Field lore.
Think so?
Hands down, field lore.
Yeah, that was a great knife.
Yeah,
this is
a signature version.
Yeah,
I mean that's the one that stays on my belt every day, 7 days a week. Is this one right here. It does everything that I want a knife to do. it peels my apples, it slices my veggies, it cuts my meat. I mean, it does everything that you would want it to do. Whittles on a stick. I mean, it's just, for
Yes,
me,
it does.
it's my perfect knife so far.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it whittles well. I think I got that, but see, that's the thing. And that's the beauty of this journey. And that's really why I wanted you on here, for a lot of reasons. But tell me, and I don't want to overcomplicate it. Tell me 3 things that you look for, not you put into your knife, but what you look for in a knife.
Comfort, retainability, and ease of sharpening.
Okay. Those are your 3.
That's the 3.
Now,
I mean, if it doesn't slice well, it doesn't cut well, and it don't hold an edge, you're not going to use it. If it's hard to sharpen, if it takes you half a day to sharpen, then you're going to get bored with it and put it back in the drawer.
Mm-hmm.
that's a fact.
Move on. Something
Now,
else.
let me ask you this.
We could get to this after your point, Skip.
Chuck and Steele, good dude, Alabama boy right there, JB. Let me ask you this. How important is it to you? Because this is one I wanted to ask, and then pull that question back up, Joe. How important is it to you for the knife to leave your shop sharp?
It's very important because it's important to the customer. I mean, the customer expects that knife when he gets it to be very sharp. So if that's what he expects, and so that's what I expect. I mean, when you get a knife, you expect it to be sharp, right?
Yeah, there's a reason I'm asking. So
Okay.
that the thing is, and I look at it, and I think Joe does as well, because Joe comes from more the swords and cutting side, so sharpness is keen. I think it's attention to detail. And I seen a guy get all mad one time, and he was a good maker, and I'm not here to bash the guy, but he was like, well, if you want a razor, buy a razor. And I'm thinking, no, you're missing the point. For me, when I put my hands on a WC knife, I know it's going to be sharp, and not just because I cut my finger off. They're always sharp. They're always easy to sharpen, and they always hold their edge. So for me, it's like if somebody said, like, when this master woodsman, the gentleman emailed me, said, hey man, I'm going to send you this one. I have a couple. I love them. This is one that I think you'll love. I was excited because I knew it would be sharp. I knew it'd be sharp. And so for me, that I think it's attention to detail. I think it's one of those things that must happen. I think it's one of those things that, and I'll be honest with you, from a knife reviewer standpoint, Joe can attest to it, man, it's a hell of a lot easier to get a good review on a knife when that some bitch is sharp.
Oh yeah.
It's just easier.
Yeah. Something right out of the box. I mean, listen, there were times when I had to review a sword, and I feel like, you know what, if this thing is not at the sharpness level I need it to be, I got to sharpen it. And it's just, you don't want to have to, you don't want to have to do that, but you got to kind of have to do that just to show the potential. But let me get into the chat. Actually, I didn't know JR has 10 of Will's knives.
Huh?
JR has about 10 of Will's knives. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Well, why wouldn't he? But I didn't know that.
That's happened somewhat recently.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
Well, I brought those with me. Those were from Sabo. And so the idea was those were older models, which I loved. JR at that time had bought 8. I didn't realize he got 2 more, but that way we could do the whole series. Pull up Chuck and Steele's question. Let's look at that.
Actually, a lot of people asking questions. We have a
Well,
couple compliments. Let me get so Bill Armstrong, he pre-ordered a Field Law. Nick had said that you build the perfect knife, all of them. So there's a compliment there, but let me bring in Chuck and Steele.
Thanks, Nick.
Says, when you started out back in the day with designs like Nessie, is the Nessmark your favorite older design, and what inspired your signature grind?
Well, it's kind of hard to say what my favorite design is, as far as Nessbook or Kephart or whatever, because I think both of them perform very well with what they're designed to do. As far as butchering and game prep and stuff like that, it's hard to beat a Nesmith style knife. I mean, that's just that hump that's what it's designed to do, is butcher and skin game. A Kephart is a wonderful blade as far as bushcraft and fieldcraft and campcraft and everything else. So what he used that knife for, it's a perfect design for that use. So it's kind of hard for me to say, because I mean, I kind of lean toward both designs a lot. And I mean, they knew what they were doing when they had that tip design. And the other question was what now?
Started back in the designs like Nessie. Is Nest Monkey your favorite folder design? And just basically, and what inspired your signature grind?
Okay, what the Woodsman's guy. All right. Well, the reason I was always disappointed in those 600 that I had was because as I was using the knife, I saw that different grinds excelled in different things differently, and I didn't use this part of the knife the same as I used this part of the knife.
Right.
So after I've been using the knife for a while, I got to thinking, why do I have the same grind when if I married two grinds to enhance different aspects of that knife, then it would be a better performer. It'd be more versatile. It would be just a better knife for my use. And so I started getting into the compound grinds. I didn't invent the compound grind. It's always been there. I didn't know it, but Bob Lovelace, which I would say is probably the father of modern design in knives, he came out with one in the 70s when he was in Alaska. It was a compound grind. David Beck, who was part of the tracker craze that came about, not the one you see at Tops, but the actual wilderness knife that Dave Beck had on the movie The Haunted. That's a compound grind. That just took the world by storm. So all of that was before I started doing this, which I kind of took those concepts even more. You look at the Cansball and the Moore 2000, that's a compound grind. So I started playing around with that and saying, what if, and I like curves. I like other things that go into that edge, because you don't use a knife the same way all the time. Sometimes you draw it toward you, sometimes you push. So as you're playing around with a knife, then you get all these ideas, or I do. Maybe I'm a little weird, but as to what if. And what if is what starts everything in my design part. And so then it developed the tooth, the one serration, and that enhanced that grind. So it's just been, it's been a progress. It's been a process from the last, 5 or 6 years. First one was that Woodsman, the Master Woodsman that developed and became the Blackbird. If you go back through the history, there's actually a playlist that's called the Woodsman's Grind, and it goes back 6 or 7 years ago when I started playing around with that in the woods, and it was just phenomenal how much better that knife worked as far as field craft than just a standard straight, whether it be a full flat or it be a Scandi blade, because different parts of a grind works differently. A Scandi is made as a wedge. It works great in wood. It'll split things apart, but it doesn't cut an apple very well. So, when you want to slice and dice vegetables, then you want to get that kitchen knife, that full flat, that very thin edge. So why not marry a Scandi into a full flat or a saber? And that was my mind process. That was my thought process on how that came about.
But now tell us the beauty of those compound grinds.
Well, it's all the same angle. You're sharpening the same angle all the way through. So, I mean, if you can sharpen a Scandi, once you lay the blade on there and find the Scandi, then you can sharpen the knife the same all the way through. It's the same angle,
regardless of the grind.
Regardless of what this part is. This is the part I do. The part that you sharpen as a customer, it's all the same angle.
Right.
Right. And but I think
it's actually easier. It's actually easier to sharpen. Sorry, Scap, but it's actually easier to sharpen than it is a full flat. Because a full flat, you have to find the angle.
right.
But these times, it shows you the angle. So
You lay it flat. Now, Bushcraft Rebooted says, what types of steel do you typically use? You use a lot, but name 2 or 3 of your favorites.
well, I mean, as far as carbon steels or tool steels, '01 is still king as far as I'm concerned. I do use a lot of the CPM steels, the 3Bs, the Magna Cut. Matter of fact, all of the signature fill oils are out of Magna Cut.
Really?
Yeah, so that's the reason they're so expensive, because Magna Cut is just through the roof.
Yeah.
But I've used just about every type of steel you can imagine. But my favorite steels is probably AEBL. I think AEBL, for the best bang for the buck, I think AEBL is king when it's done right. I can't speak for other brands because I don't know their heat treating process. But for my shop and how they come out of my shop, AEBL is the best bang for the buck, I think. Magna Cut, as far as cut test, it's off the charts, but you're going to pay for it. So,
yeah.
And AEBL, it'll hang with it for the most part. But I mean, there is a slight edge that goes to Magna Cut as far as edge retention, and it's easily sharpened too. That's the other thing that ticks the box. Is it doesn't take you half a day to bring the edge back.
Your AEBL is probably my favorite steel, honestly. Just the way it's heat treated, the way it holds an edge. And I've said this before, this is that Sainer Scout that Blackie had gifted me. When I did the demonstration review, whatever you want to call it, on this knife, I made the comment, I think Blackie sharpened it up before he sent it. And he messaged me, he said, Bubba, that knife ain't been sharpened in 2 years. And right now, it'll slice paper.
Wow.
Yeah, well, we were testing AEBL, and all these videos are on my YouTube channel. If you guys want to go back, there's probably 500 or 600 videos on my YouTube channel. And there's playlists. If you go to the homepage, there's playlists that breaks all this stuff down. When we were testing AEBL, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying, Jerbs, if you can actually put up Wild Challenge 1, he's the link to William's YouTube channel into the chat so people can find his channel.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's actually scrolling at the bottom, but it's Wild Challenge, the number 1. But I'm sorry, go ahead, Will.
Yeah, or either do a search on YouTube, WC Knives, and it'll pop up.
Right.
But anyway, when we were doing the test, and Blackie was part of it. I had some guys in Canada that was part of it. Dan Lutz, the great Dan Lutz, was part of this testing that we were doing. And I had always used '01 as far as the blade steel on the WCSK. And everybody was wanting to do a stainless steel version. So I kept hearing about this AEBL. This AEBL is fantastic stuff, all this other stuff. Matter of fact, a good friend of mine, Travis, had contacted me and said, "Hey, man, you need to test this AEBL out. It's fantastic stuff." So I did a little research on it, and it's actually razor blade steel. So it's molecular to where it holds a very fine edge, which is what I like on a knife, a very fine slicing, durable edge. So that intrigued me. So I started doing some tests, and I said, "Wow, this is pretty good stuff." So once I got the heat treat down to where I thought that it would perform in a big knife, that was the key to where it would be durable enough to be in a survival knife like the WCSK. Then I started letting these other guys shipping them out knives and said, "Hey, let's run these knives through the paces. Let's see what they can do." I mean, we're not out to break a knife, but we want to test it in real world situations as to what this knife should be thought to be able to do. And the keys was, like I said, it has to be easily sharpened. It has to hold an edge very well. It ticks all those boxes. So we were actually comparing in strokes, comparing this knife to the 01, the WCSK and AEBL and the WCSK and 01. And on average for all three of us, the AEBL held an edge about 30% longer, and it took the same amount of strokes to resharpen it as the 01. And it was stainless. I mean, it's a true stainless. I mean, we tested this in trap dye is what Dan did. He used lemon juice and a lot of other things trying to get this knife to corrode, and it wouldn't do it. So it's almost as true a stainless as you can get. So yeah, AEBL is one of my top two steels, if not the number one.
Let's see. JR said Will's AEB-L is fantastic. I have a Blackbird in 3B that she did a great job on. I haven't had to sharpen it yet and have cut quite a bit with it. Yeah, that's JR, and that's what I'm saying. A lot of your knives now with Blackie, and I'm going to mention this, but I want to put everything in context, guys. What William did, they weren't doing this for YouTube. They weren't doing it for clicks and views. They were doing it R&D, right? Research. So Blackie said, and he and I talked extensively. I went back a couple of weeks ago, and Blackie said one of the things that you guys did was cut through sheetrock. And then one of the big tests that you guys talked about was blasting your way through a cinder block. Now, again, this was done for research and development type stuff, but that goes to show the strength of the knife. And if I'm not mistaken, the AEB, at least, that's an old steel, isn't it? Like it's been around a minute.
Well, it was the upgrade from the old 12C27 steel that's used on Victorinox knives.
Right.
So it was kind of improved from that. That's the Cadillac version, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Well, I had done I obviously don't do a whole lot of research into the steels and things. It's not my bit. And I want to transition now into one of the topics I wanted to talk to you about. Guys, if you've seen the interview that I did with William and Blackie, we talked about batoning. The thing is this, and William, I'm going to give you the floor for a few minutes. I just want you we talked about it off air. Guys, listen, batoning has gotten out of control, and y'all have heard me mention that in the past few videos, and I'm as guilty as anybody. But William, tell us the dangers of batoning. Go ahead.
Well, everybody is I'm not a fan of batoning. I should say that. There's harmonics and vibrations that go in that's involved in that steel that nobody wants to talk about. Even the guy that developed the MagnaCut steel, I asked him a question. Have you considered the harmonics and the vibrations in that blade during batoning? And there was no response. But being a former construction manager, harmonics plays a huge part in everything that you do in steel. Mm-hmm. So as you're beating on that blade, there's vibrations going up and down that blade, and it will find a weak spot. Eventually, it will find that weak spot. Now, it may take it 10 years, it may take it 20 years, it may be not in your lifetime, it may be in somebody else's lifetime, but it will fail at some point. Basically, the fail point on all of our testing was right here, where that one very fine edge runs up against a 90 degrees grind. And that's where it stops, and it'll create a fissure right there. And it'll work eventually through that blade. And the reason we started talking about this was because I had knives out there that was 2-3 years old. And I knew these were knives that was being, well, abused. Let's just say that. But it would take it 2 or 3 years to fail. And if there's bad steel or a bad heat treat, it should fail immediately. Mm-hmm. So batoning is not a good test on a knife blade. I guess if you want to see if it's got a good heat treat and it doesn't fail the first time you baton, then it's a good knife. But these were happening 2 years from that point, 3 years. And the comment that I kept getting was, William, I've been beating on this knife for a year and it didn't do anything. Then all of a sudden I started just doing a little piece of kindling and it broke.
Right.
So we started putting our heads together, me, Blackie, and Dan. And Dan was a bridge supervisor in Ohio, and he was talking about stress cracks in bridges and how they would have to stop drill those, and it brought my thinking back to that. And so I started figuring all these vibrations out and harmonics and all this stuff and what was causing. So I started putting a choil right here that would stop, actually go up against a little bit thicker piece of steel. Now, it didn't fix the problem, but it helped the problem. Now, anytime you beat on a knife, you're going to have vibrations. Anytime you beat on a knife, you're going to be rolling the dice. I'm not saying don't go out and beat on your knife. That's your knife. You do what you want to. I'm just saying it's a cautionary tale. As long as you go back to what the original people that I've seen do this, and I've been in the woods all my life, I've watched the elders do this. No one beat on a knife until YouTube. And I first saw this by Ray Mears, Morris Kahansky. I've seen them do it, but they used kindling size wood, realistic, common sense size wood. The only, we're not going to get into who went above that and why, but anytime you go above that, to me, you're asking too much of that knife. Is there knives that can handle it better than others? Yes. And I've got a video that talks about if you're going to select a knife for batoning, the things to look for. Basically, you're wanting a thick blade, you're wanting a wedge so that it splits it as quickly as possible. You're wanting something that is going to be very robust. A long blade has the choil there to stop the vibrations. Because if you look at a fro, there is no 90 degrees that edge goes up against. Otherwise, a fro wouldn't work too well. Yeah. So it's just a cautionary tale that I try to bring everything back to a little bit of common sense. And when you see a knife break, that doesn't mean that it was a bad knife. That means that it was overused for that knife. So, you know, you can break anything. And I've seen every brand break. I've seen top of the line break. It's just, you abuse it and it's going to break.
And guys, let me quantify it because I can already hear it. I've already heard it. If you're in that mythical survival situation where you run off the side of the road down the mountain, you got your knife in your underwear, by all means, baton it. The 1/1,000,000th of a 10%. What Williams, we're not saying don't do it. If you find yourself in a spot, and this is what I've just started thinking. If the apocalypse started tomorrow, because we always want to talk about that bullshit, but if it started tomorrow, I'm not going to beat the hell out of the one cutting tool I got. I'm going to take care of it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that doesn't, guys act like if the apocalypse comes, you're now going to have to just start jackhammering your knife. You want to take care of it.
Yeah, the other thing, Scab, is, you know, I've built fires my whole life and I never feathered a stick. I mean, it makes good video. It really does. Yeah. But that's not firecraft. That's cheating. You know, learn firecraft. Go out and learn how to pick dry sticks off of the trees. If there's big sticks, there's little sticks. You know, that's always been my saying. So, you know, learn how to build a fire without having to do feather sticks. Because if you're needing a fire, the more time it takes to go saw a limb off, the square to do batoning, then get to the feathers and all this other stuff, you froze to death. I mean, that takes time. Learn how to build a fire off the land in just a matter of seconds or minutes by choosing the right stuff and knowing where to find this stuff. Have good tinder on you. I mean, just be prepared.
That's, I know down here, and I did like a little short today. I found me a pine knot. Looked like a hand grenade, was about that big, and started processing it up. Some of it William, and you touched on this, and some of it is good video, right? Some of it is a good way, like feather sticking. And I found that I'm in the constant, I think Joe's probably in the same thing, and anybody in this game from our side of it, I think we're always I know that I'm always looking for better ways to show the knife, if that makes sense. And since you and I talked at Blackie's, my whole attitude on batoning changed, because I'm guilty of it. I'll be the first one to tell you. But I've started using, trying to use the smaller, because in all honesty, and if you're really thinking about it, most people are going to break the stick, break them down to what you need, have what you need on you. I carry me a little piece of fat lighter in my pocket about that. I usually shave me a pencil, like a number 2 pencil size piece of lighter knot, and put it in my pocket, or have it in a tin can, whatever.
Yeah.
But tell me some of the things that you guys did to actually test, to actually R&D your knives.
Well, cutting vegetable. I mean, one thing that a lot of things is left out as far as R&D a knife. I mean, most of the time you're going to use a knife to cook with, to eat.
Right.
I mean, that's what a knife is used for mostly. So we did a lot of vegetable prep, cooking, game prep. We did a little bit of that. Testing the cutability of that knife, and cutting different materials, whittling on the stick. Just now, the WCSK, we abuse that knife. I mean, we abuse that knife. I went through cinder block with it, and it didn't have a pristine edge. I will tell you
Right.
that. It would still cut, but it wasn't pristine. But
Right.
it went through the cinder block. I've driven it in a tree and stood on it. And anything that you can, I've batoned 4-inch twisted oak logs with it. But, it's one of those knives that you wanted to see the capabilities of it, at least get a feel for.
Yeah.
Now, over time, will that knife fail if you continue to do that? It probably would. But of course, it's got those vibrations and harmonics. And back to the survival thing, I agree, Scab. If you're actually in a true survival situation, I would not jeopardize any of my tools. And like I said, doing feathers and batoning wood is a last resort, because it takes too much time and calories to do that.
Yeah.
It's if you lost your kit, if aliens came down and stole your equipment, then at least have the knowledge of where to get some dry tinder, some dry grasses, some limbs off of trees. Expand your knowledge to where you know where to get those at.
Least use of energy as possible. That's
Yeah,
a good way of
because
looking at it. I
anytime,
like that.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, because I mean, beating on this and all this other stuff, that takes calories.
Sure.
And calories is the name of the game when you're in a survival situation.
Right, but listen,
True survival situation.
Yeah, this is when we really break it down, that makes more sense than anything else. And we could all agree the whole batoning thing on YouTube is really more just for the, just for the show, just to show, listen, this is how tough the knife is. But Skip, I even know that many times that even when you're doing that, you're kind of just explaining, listen, the only time I ever baton is when I'm reviewing the knives, but on a normal basis, I don't normally baton with my knives. You kind of make that statement a lot in your videos as well.
But yeah, but that whole thing comes from that conversation with William.
And I agree 100%. That changed me a lot too. Changed my outlook on it. After I seen you guys in SCAB, I called you right away about it. I'm like, wow. I'm like, I never really thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of freaking sense to me.
Well, and I can imagine from a knife maker's standpoint, you see someone like myself on YouTube just batoning the shit out of a 4-inch log, you're probably going to do really. But I told you at the camp out, hey, now the game is, let's get the knowledge out there, and that's why I throw that disclaimer. And again, I've cut way down on that because from my perspective, because my shtick is more straight out of the box. I don't do long-term stuff. So it really sat home with me that, hey, this guys, this is, so it's probably not going to fail. because I don't do long-term reviews. I do, hey, boom, it's sharp, it's tough, it's
That's the other point. I mean, when you see this stuff on YouTube, you don't see the longevity of that knife.
right,
I mean, you see that knife being abused one time. And
right,
I mean, granted, if it was bad steel, it would have failed at that point. But when it fails 3, 2, 5 years from now, it's not that it was a bad knife. It's just that it reached its failure point.
right.
So, that's another, and there's going to be people saying, well, I've been on my knife my whole life and nothing has happened. And that's all well and good. Maybe you're using proper technique, choosing the right material, not going over a kindling size wood. I mean, using all the factors, it's common sense. And that's all I'm saying is let's get back to that and stop trying to build a log cabin with a 4-inch blade. I mean, that's all I'm saying.
And that makes sense. Joe, read JR's question.
JR asked, he said, ask Will, short touch. Will, is short touch hard to work with? You don't see a lot of people using it, and it makes for a great handle. Then I have another one from What's the Point?
It is very difficult to work with. The problem with short touch is you have layers of soft and hard material. So when you're grinding, it's all about pressure and muscle memory. So when you're going from micarta to a sure touch, you'll take too much off of the sure touch in a heartbeat if you're not careful. And also with all those little lines, trying to get both sides to mirror each other, that is almost maddening to get those to where they're smooth and they're straight and they look the same on either side. And I don't get it every time, but they're all handmade. So there's a little nuances in each knife because it has a handmade product. But yeah, sure touch is a pain in the work. Another thing with sure touch is the pricing of sure touch has just gone through the roof over the last few months. It's tripled in price. So it's actually cheaper to get a good wood handle than it is to get sure touch now. So
that's people that I've found it. There's different camps of knife lovers, and you know that, William. There's guys that go to the camp out. There's my guys. There's the tactical guys. It's all the way across the board. But what I see a lot, man, is people love those wood handles. All right, next question.
Want me to read it, Scab?
Yeah, please do.
So what's the point? Welcome, buddy, into the room. Hey, Will, do you have plans on using, if I'm saying it right, crew wear? It's amazing. It's super tough, gets wicked sharp like 14 C28N and AEBL, and holds a damn good edge. So the question is about crew wear.
I have crew wear. I've got crew wear on some Benchmade folders. I test a lot of steels with different models or different brands. It's great steel. It really is. I don't know why I would want a steel that's not rust resistant when the AEBL does a better job than crew wear and is rust resistant. It's a good steel. I'm not going to knock it, but as far as when you compare it to AEBL, I think it's lacking in a few areas.
It's not as well rounded, right?
Yeah,
right.
And that's something too, though. And Frank, appreciate that question, buddy. His channel is actually What's the Point EDC. Great channel. That brings to mind this: as a knife maker, you want to be selective with what steels that you offer because your name's on it, right? Cost, and why have the same of, tell me some factors that go into your steel choices.
Well, hold a good edge, easily sharpened, and it's the same thing. For the most part, stainless steel used to be, back when I was a kid, was one of those things that you didn't want. You don't want stainless because it took forever to sharpen. But these new stainless steels that's coming out now, man, I don't know why you'd want anything else. As far, the testing that we've done compared it to '01 tool steel, which in my book is a premium tool steel.
I love O1.
Yeah.
When it's done right, it is a phenomenal steel.
Right.
And I just use this caveat: when all steels that is used in knives, if they're done right, they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal knives. Each one has a different edge as far as properties that enhances a blade or detracts from a blade in certain fields and areas. Toughness, edge retention. I mean, just goes on and on. That's the reason they have charts and all this other stuff. Metallurgists just goes and fights over this stuff. But but when I'm looking for an edge on a knife, I want something that, like I said, it's going to have a very fine edge, hold that edge very reasonably length of time, and it's easily sharpened. And that's what I'm looking for in a steel.
Right. Let me ask you a question.
I'll just kind of touch on something.
Yeah.
3V, I like a coarse edge. And I've done tests on this, coarse versus polished. I'm not talking about saw teeth. I'm talking about just a microscopic coarse edge on a blade. If you take two blades, same thickness, same grinds as far as angles and all this other stuff, and sharpen one with a coarse stone and just clean it with a piece of leather versus one that has dropped to a mirror edge, that coarse edge will last 3 times longer than the polished edge will. It will cut better and longer. So with that in mind, some of those steels work better polished than they do coarse. And you could feel the difference in the edge. 3V is one of those steels. 3V gets really sharp, but it doesn't get as sharp as AEBL. AEBL feels sharper than any steel other than MagnaCut. MagnaCut's the only thing that I've found that's comparable to it. It just feels sharper. It'll actually take the skin off of your thumb as you rake your thumb across AEBL because it was designed for razor blades.
And it'll cut straight to the bone. That's a fact.
Yeah, yeah, it will.
Yeah,
it's hit me a few times. Matter of fact, I got one that's still healing. I mean, they get me quite often.
That's a fact. But that's interesting. You say that too about the feel. That's with me. When I look at a knife, there's a lot of things, and I got racks and racks. I'm like you, William. If you look over here, these are all full, all the way up and down. But AEB-L is one of those steels that you can feel, and you go, that's sharp. And in the back of my head, that really, it means it matters to me. You know what I'm saying? Like when I pull out the Blackbird, and I just do a quick, that's sharp.
Yeah, it wants to take your skin and slice it off, doesn't it? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It feels sharp. Now, doing cut tests and everything else, and I've done all of this with cardboard. I've done it with rope. I've done it with rubber. I've done it with just about anything you can imagine. Side by side, 3V cuts about as well as AEBL. It's a lot more expensive and a lot more tougher than AEBL, but as far as sharpness, that AEBL just eases that 3V out in my book. Now, I've got 3V knives. I have a lot of the big choppers that I like 3V, and I think it has its place. Now, on a belt knife or a 4-inch hunting knife or something like that, I don't need it to be tough. I need it to hold an edge and a very fine edge. So I prefer AEBL for that. So that goes back to the steel choices that you was talking about. In some applications, a certain steel type is better than something else. So, for a large chopper or a thin bladed chopper, you want something that is flexible and yet has a little bit of toughness to it. So maybe you want a 52-100 bearing steel on that. Maybe a 3V, something like that for a long machete or a big chopper. So that's where types of steel plays. Now, if you're comparing the same style of knife, same length, same all this other stuff, then I don't think types of steel plays too much part of that.
Gotcha.
Unless you're getting the real cheap stuff. But there is better steels out there than a lot of the older stuff.
When you mentioned, I remember growing up, man, if you had stainless, it was crap.
Yeah, and that was true.
You know?
I mean, you would throw away a stainless knife. I remember when Case went from their chrome vanillin or whatever they had in those old yellow ones
Yeah.
to this surgical stainless. Man, you couldn't give those things away.
No, people
Um,
pitched a fit.
yeah, and rightfully so. I mean, even
Yeah.
today, Case, it's hard for them to match that. That I think it's chrome vanillin is what they call it, or
Yeah.
whatever that steel was.
Hey, let me tell you about that. I had earlier this week, a couple of guys at work come up to me and they said, you ever lost a knife around here? I said, yeah, a time or two. You ever lost a case around here? I said, yeah. I said, what's going on? Well, they pull out like two kids. They pull out a case knife, William, and it was one of those old yellow handles. And it was so old, the case emblem had fallen out. It was laying in the dirt. We have a sandblast pit out back, and you know, you don't contain that shit. It's everywhere. But they had found an old case knife, and man, we opened that thing up, and it was still sharp as shit. And it had to be a late 60s, early 70s model. But it wasn't made up because it'd been in that, and sandblasting's been going on there for decades, but I guess it had been in that dry environment. And man, it was, I wanted to tell them it was mine, but I couldn't. I said, no, finders keepers, that's y'all's. Y'all go ahead. But yeah, some of that old school stuff, man. I've got a couple of Buck 110s and the Uncle Henry Shrades when they were made in America.
That first one, did you get the first one in the 60s?
The
Buck 110?
I had one from my grandfather. Yeah.
Oh man, that thing, it would take you all day and half the night to sharpen that thing.
Hmm.
But I mean, it was so
difficult to
hard.
sharpen. Okay.
Yeah, it was so hard, the steel was. That I mean, I know a lot of the old guys that just they wouldn't touch them. They wanted something that was easy to sharpen. I mean, you think about a trapper or a hunter. I mean, once that blade is dull, they don't want to sit down for an hour or two to resharpen that thing. They want to hit it on a few times on the sharpening steel and go back to work.
We
So,
know. It was funny. I was actually talking to Blackie about that very thing. And he said when he was younger, he said, man, I made a lot of money. He said, because those guys, once it went dull, they didn't want nothing to do with it. Yeah. He said, I'd buy it at a discount, sharpen it up, and sell it again. We talked about that very thing. Yeah, that's crazy.
They wanted something that actually a softer steel was what they preferred. I mean, that's where the 50s range of the 50s came in for Rockwell harnesses, because those old timers, they wanted a soft steel, because as soon as it got dull, they hit it on a butcher steel and go right back to work. But you know, the process of steel nowadays is they've got steel that'll last a lot longer, and it still is easy to bring back to hair pop and sharp.
How easy is it to sharpen MagnaCut on your knives? What is your opinion on it as far as using MagnaCut? If it's still a well-rounded, all right, let me try to rephrase the question. How do you perceive MagnaCut as being either well-rounded steel or maybe for certain like application handy type of steels, you know, in terms of basically being able to, you know, have that ease of sharpening or not ease of sharpening? What's your take on the MagnaCut?
Using the same tools as you would use on other steel, like diamond rods and diamond this and that. It's about the same. It may take a couple, 3 more strokes, but it's not enough to really notice it. My opinion on MagnaCut is it's the closest premium steel that I've seen that's closest to AEBL. Okay. As far as sharpness, cutting ability, it'll probably ease out AEBL slightly on edge durability, because I mean, there's been some tests, and I haven't took it this far, but there's been some tests that this thing, the MagnaCut, will go through a rope over 500 times. So I mean, the edge retention on MagnaCut is just out of this world. AEBL will last a long time. Don't get me wrong.
Yes, it
The
will.
thing is, I mean, as far as um, bang for the buck, like I said, AEBL is the best bang for the buck. If you have the money and you want to kind of increase that or go to the next level, then there's always MagnaCut. I think it's just a slightly better steel, but you're going to pay for it. Now, whether
Yeah.
it's worth the extra money or not, that's an individual choice. I can't make that for you.
Well, let's. I don't want to tie you up all night. We've been going a minute, but
I talk knives 24/7. I'm here as long as you guys want me.
And I gotta tell you, an hour passed by. It didn't even feel like it. I didn't even
No.
think. I thought it was maybe about
Wow, we
40
have been
minutes.
on an hour. Wow.
We've been
Okay.
over an hour and 5. It didn't even feel like it.
Well,
Yeah.
I do, before we wrap, I do want you to talk about being an American knife maker.
Yeah.
And some of the expense that goes into buying American, if you would. And that it's a question I like to ask because people have all these opinions on it. But I like to talk to people who actually have, like you said, have to buy the steel, have to buy the handle material, and you watch the prices go up, you watch transportation go up. Talk a little bit about how that factors into you and your business.
Well, up until 2020, when COVID hit, I mean, prices probably went up 30-40% at that point. I mean, there for a while, you couldn't get steel and the steel comes from Germany. I buy it by the plate from New Jersey Steel, and they get it from all over the world. The steels that I use comes from Germany though, and so shipping went up. Price of steel went up. I'm talking to get it on a cargo ship and ship it from Germany to. I mean, they was talking just one container went up from 3,000 to 20,000 for a container. So nothing is manufactured in the United States as far as raw materials. Everything is shipped in from overseas, and to get it here, you have to either use a ship or a plane. And transportation has just steadily increased by the month almost. So you're paying for that. You're paying for the materials. You're paying for me to eat. You're paying for everything that has gone up. I mean, everybody that goes to a grocery store knows how far everything has gone up. The cost to burn these lights has gone up. So this is what you're paying for. You're not just paying for a hunk of steel with a handle on it. You're paying for that shop to still stay in business. So you gotta either do volume or you gotta do a knife price that's going to be able to keep everything going. To order that steel from Germany for the next 6 months or so, because you have to plan ahead. You can't just have an order for a knife and then order the steel. You have to have enough steel on hand to what you believe is going to be the next 6 months.
Yeah.
So once I get the plates of steel shipped in and shipped to my local water jet company, I got to pay him to set it on the water jet, to water jet it, hand me the blanks that I designed, and then I got to go through and get liquid nitrogen, sand belts. I spend anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 a week just on sand belts.
Yeah.
So and those sand belts, guess where they're made? In Germany. They're the best sand belts in the world, but they cost you. They cost anywhere from $10 to $12 a piece.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's things that we don't think about as consumers. And it's something that I want to bring up and I like to bring up because we're not going down this road, but I am a firm believer in doing our part and not just having a channel, but doing our part. And Joe and I, when we started this, we wanted to bring American knife makers, American designers. But I want folks to hear too what goes into this. Everybody thinks, oh, maybe they should just eat that cost. And it's like, no, don't worry, you wouldn't eat that cost. I'm not going to eat that cost. Our stuff went up at work.
If you can't make a living, why do it? I mean,
right.
I will still make knives. but there won't be a business. It'll be me
That's right.
out in the garage on the weekend making knives for me.
Yeah.
But as far as a business, what's the point?
That's right.
There has to be a profit margin there. It's almost got to the point to where, profit is a bad word, but profit is what built this country.
Right.
That's what made somebody want to get out there and start their own business, is because they saw that there was a need, or they enjoyed what they were doing and they could make a living doing that because there was profit. If there's not profit, then we'll be working for the man who's making the profit.
That's right. Well,
That'd be the end of small business.
You get what you pay for.
Right.
And I feel like with your stuff, you get a quality knife that's going to last you. And I firmly believe that. I'm a firm believer in that. And you're getting a knife that's easy to work with. And I'd use that term a lot, William, and I think sometimes it comes off wrong. But one thing I do look for in a knife is ease of use. If I'm camping, or if I've got my grandson, or if I'm out doing something, or if I'm in the woods, I don't want to have a knife that I've had to learn to figure out. Now, every knife you get the feel for, but there's a difference in getting the feel for a knife and a knife that is complicated. You know what I'm saying? So your knives to me are very easy to use. They're easy to orient, the direction of the blade. There's really no hot spots. I'm a massive fan of that, because I can go this way, this way, this way, and this way, and I can turn it around. I can do the same thing, same rotation, and it's comfortable every way. And for me, that's what I look for.
Yeah. The thing about the handle is, when I'm using a knife, I'm not only just on the handle, I'm all over that blade. If you watch somebody that's been using a knife for any length of time, that they don't just grab the knife by the handle. They grab it up by the tip. They grab it up by everything that they can hold on to. So
That's right.
That handle is designed to where it's really a multi-grip or a multi-position handle, to where, you can even grab it out on the end. And I don't know if these people can see me or not, but you can grab it out on the end. You can grab it out on the end like a leeku, and you've got something to hold on to back there with a lanyard through your little pinky. And
right.
Like a leeku that they use in Sweden, and it's like speed as far as chopping. And it will actually, like a small hand axe, if you will. And then you got your standard grip, and you got another bubble up there on the top to kind of use as a guard to keep you from slipping up on the blade. But you also have it to where you can grab onto that knife. And you're going to cut yourself. Well, maybe, but not likely if that's what you've trained to do.
Right.
You won't cut yourself very many times until you learn how to hold the knife. So,
right.
And even grabbing it up on the tip. I've always said that I can take a large knife and make a small knife. I can grab it up on the tip and make it a small knife, but I can't take a small knife and make it a large knife. So, I tend to go on the large side a lot of times. Even on my small whittling knives, it's probably a 3 or 4 inch blade, where a lot of people like a really small 1.5 or 2 inch blade. So I always lean toward the longer blades because I can do that. I can choke up on that blade and make it a small blade. But again, it's how you train yourself. If you watch a lot of the indigenous people in the jungles and so on and so forth, they're all over that machete. They're holding the machete up on the tip. They're holding on the blade, and they're razor sharp. But they have trained themselves on how to do that. So it just depends on how you train yourself to use a knife as far as what you can get away with and what you can't. I guess is a good way to put it.
It makes sense to me.
Yep.
That makes sense to me. Listen, we've enjoyed having you. What I want to do, Williams, I'd like to bring you back. You have an open invitation to come back, but take a few minutes and just leave us with where you're headed, where WC Knives is headed, what you got coming up, and then we'll let Joe sing us a song out of here.
Well, I mean, I'm going to be making knives the rest of my life. I'll probably die behind the grinder. But it's going to remain a one-man shop. I'm getting close to 60 now. So I am going to be slowing down a little bit, but I've cut down to two wholesale accounts, and we may even go down to one at some point. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. And like I said in the beginning, I mean, I've been very blessed. I have a very astute following, if you will, and I appreciate each and every one of them. And it's like Lay's potato chips; they don't come for just one; they come for multiple knives, and I appreciate that. I really do. But as far as where we're going, I'm still going to be expanding as far as designs. I mean, I'm a designer at heart. That's what I enjoy doing. Just because I think I've found my perfect knife, that doesn't mean I'm stopping as far as exploring and testing and seeing what else is out there. Because unless you try, you don't know what's best. I mean, I get the comment all the time, that's not what Grandpa used, so I don't need it. Well, if Grandpa had a chance to use it, he probably would use it. So,
That's a fact.
until you try something, you really don't know if it's for you or not. Now, somebody's going to say, well, I'm not going to spend $300-400 for a knife just to see if I like it or not. Well, the resale value of my knives is pretty much stays the same. You're not going to lose any money so far if you buy a knife and don't like it. And I'm not going to say that these knives are for everybody, because they're not. But there has been more people who've tried them and stay with them, and I've had more comments of people saying, I've sold all my other knives and I'll only use WCs from now on. So that's something that keeps me in the grind room, that keeps me at this table here drawing sketches and trying to figure this thing out, because who knows what tomorrow brings.
Sure.
I may come up with a design that's never been thought of, so we gotta still try, but keep building, keep grinding. That's where we're going.
And they
I
will
like
come.
it.
I hope I didn't
Keep
ramble
grinding
too
them,
much.
and they will come.
Yeah,
Oh, I
that's
like
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, I know Frank asked a question, and I'm going to answer it real quick. Frank, I've got 3 of Williams knives. Now, this one is a one-off. This is a one-off, and I absolutely adore this knife. It's an AEB-L. We believe this is the one, William, that was so old it's got WC on it, and that's it. This one was a gift.
Yeah.
But Frank, honest to God, man, if you're looking for one of his knives in AEB-L, I would say either the Master Woodsman Blackbird or the Saner Scout. And the truth is, man, from a use standpoint, I have used the fire out of this thing. I like this one. I really haven't deep dived this one yet. I'm going to do a video on it, then I will. But get you one, if you're looking for one of his knives, I'd say either the Blackbird or the Saner Scout. As far as use goes, these are my 2 favorite. They're both in AEB-L, if that helps you out, brother. Now, we're going to have William back, and we'll talk about, because I want to get into Blackie, and I want to get into Dan, and I want to get into all that. But those 2, man, and check him out. Joe, do what you do.
One thing I want to say real quick, if I may.
Go ahead, Will.
There's a very high demand for my knives. So if you check with the dealers, there's only 2 of them. If you go to my homepage, read the homepage on my website, it'll kind of give you a brief dissertation of how things go. But there's 2 dealers. One of them is Great Northern Knives, and you'll be able to order different models through them if you follow their pre-order website page. The other one is Ridge Runner Blades, which will post what they have on their website when they have it available. And folks, these things go very quickly, so you have to kind of keep in touch with my YouTube channel, subscribe, click on the bell of when there's drops. I'll do a 2-week update every 2 weeks of where production is at and where models are being delivered to and dropped at. So if you want a knife, and it's going to be probably one of those things, you get what you can get, because like I said, I have over 100 different models that I've designed in my career. And so the Blackbird that he's talking about, the Sander Scout that he's talking about, they are in very high demand. Now, there is a Sander Scout that was posted on my Facebook group for sale yesterday. Now, I don't know if it is still available or not, but if you're part of that Facebook group, then there's a lot of things come up for sale on that. And most of the time they're selling something to buy another WC.
Yeah.
So, you know, they'll have one eye for a while and they say, well, I want to try this other design. So anyway, that's just a thought that if people are interested in, they can be part of it. And if I don't approve you when you request to be in the group, the WC Knives group of Facebook, then send me a private message or something. Let me know you're not a bot. Okay. Because I do scrutinize those very, very tightly. And if I see it and there's not a lot of things on your profile page, then I won't accept you on the group page. But if you're real and you want to be part of the group, then just send me a private message on Messenger or whatever, and I'll be sure and approve your request.
Okay.
So,
Excellent. All right. So, William, listen, guys in the chat room, everyone who kind of, we still have a pretty packed room, and we appreciate you guys staying with us till the end. And you heard all the info. Spread the word about William and his knives. I know there's a lot of people in the room that haven't heard about you before until the live, and everybody's very curious now. And believe me, guys, from what I'm seeing and what I've seen from SCAB, it's he's got some solid knives there. You know, old world tradition, old world toughness, and you got some good stuff, you know, coming out of William's hands. So definitely spread the word on his knives. But William, thanks for being here, and absolutely, doors open. We'll definitely, you know, redo the show again. Maybe we'll get more of a packed room. Maybe we'll get Blackie into the room and do like a whole like round table type of thing. I think that should be fun. And thanks everybody for joining us. And SCAB, you think we'll get together before Christmas? Maybe do like a late show Christmas thing going on?
Yeah, we're going to do a Christmas.
Yeah, because I got some knives I want to give away for the holidays too. So look out for that, guys. We'll try to get together and see if we could get that show in. But that's great, William. Thank you again. Much appreciated.
And if we didn't get to your question, just send me a question on Facebook or through my website. If you want to know a question, then I'll be happy to answer your questions. All right?
And
I see a bunch of them on the chat room. There's a bunch of questions on there we can get to.
Okay.
Guys, do me a favor real quick, if you would. I know you're in the live chat now. When this ends, William, when this ends, hang out for a minute. We all do the awkward stare at the thing. But guys, if you have a question for William, put them in the comments. Not the live chat, but the comments.
Yeah.
And then I'll make sure we go through them. And if William doesn't see them, I'll make sure he gets them. But please put them there. That also helps the algorithm for everybody. That would be appreciated.
Absolutely, guys. Yes. Carry on the conversation into the comment section if you have anything else that we didn't get to. But thank you also for everyone that would, you know, that joined in on all the questions and stuff like that. Hopefully we were able to get a lot of them in, but definitely put them to the comment section, and we'll try to get it over to William, and we'll get you the info. We'll get you the info. So thanks, guys. SCAB, have a good evening. Everyone in the chat room, thank you so much for being here all the way to the end. We much appreciated, and look out for another Blade Talk, hopefully pre-Christmas, and if not pre-Christmas, pre-New Year's or something like that. But we'll definitely get Christmas. Yeah, hopefully. So let's get that done, and have a good night, everyone. William, thank you again. Have a good night to everyone in the room, and we'll see you when we see you. God bless.